All right, how's everybody doing? Ready to kick off the afternoon. So first of all, I am really excited. I am a self-described geek. I'm a builder, so AI and blockchain are two topics very close to my heart, and I'm very fortunate that we have two amazing speakers for our panel today who can help us really get some insight into these two topics. I think one of the things I was thinking about in trying to prepare for this panel is like, these are two really huge topics. So on top of that, you know, none of us really has a crystal ball per se in terms of telling the future, specifically on these two topics. But what we can try to do is maybe look at it through a bit of a prism, right? And so what we're going to try to do is maybe talk through both of these topics, definitely from the perspectives of our panelists, but maybe try to look at it from a couple of different angles, and hopefully that can give you guys some insight into these, you know, really groundbreaking topics. So without further ado, I thought obviously it'd be great to have the panelists do a little bit of an introduction, you know, where they came from, what you guys are working on, and also maybe at present, kind of how you guys are seeing AI and blockchain in your own kind of respective, you know, projects. So maybe Maika, if you want to kick off.
Yeah, happy to.
Yeah,
hello,
great.
Good afternoon. I'm super excited to be here. This is my third time in Hawaii, but originally I'm from Japan. I flew there today from Tokyo, but right now I'm in New York, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Webacy, and my shirt says due diligence. And that's what we do. We do diligence for everything on the blockchain. So we do risk analysis, risk like formatting, risk scoring for anything on chain, which could be a smart contract, it could be a token, it could be a wallet address, it could be a transaction, all of the above. And the point of this is to know, is what you're doing on chain safe or not? This is one of the largest issues in safety and security and user adoption is, do you know what you're doing on chain? So that's the problem we're trying to solve. When it comes to AI, maybe we can dive into the topics after your intro. Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, I want to just thank Ellen again for giving me an opportunity to come up here and talk to you about, it's really a super exciting time. I actually, we're from the island of Kauai. I live there now. And I went to school in California. I thought I was going to become a doctor. I graduated from UC Davis. Some things changed, and I ended up playing with computers. I think I built my first Apple computer at 12, and I pretty much stayed in computers after that point. And then someone asked me if I'd be willing to help them out with some software, and I didn't really know that much about software. And here I am, like 25 plus years later. I spent the last 25 years helping big enterprise organizations, Fortune 500 companies, implement artificial intelligence as it related to enterprise applications. So if you're not, is anyone familiar with SAP? Have you heard of that? So SAP is what runs 84% of all your commerce globally. So most companies that sell or manufacture or do some kind of business uses SAP, but it's a very rigid system. So if you're using that, oftentimes there's opportunities to build custom applications, and many of those were built using early artificial intelligence and algorithms to help them do calculations underneath the cover. So although artificial intelligence seems like it's fairly new for us, and even blockchain, it's been used for quite a bit. And it's great to see now that we have the power to actually give everyone access to it. This is where I think it's going to be exciting. Hopefully we'll get to talk about the opportunities that we see for the people, not just on this island, but across many nations. So.
Great. Yeah. I think you touched on a couple of things. One thing that I think sticks out is that AI, as well as blockchain, has been around, you know, for a while, actually. It just seems like it's kind of hit the mainstream in the past, you know, 1 or 2 years with the so-called, you know, ChatGPT moment, right? So I think one way to kind of look at these two topics is with respect to like the past. And both of you have been in the respective industries and touching on these two topics in your own respective ways for several years now. So I myself, got pretty heavily into Web3 in like the 2020, 2021, like the NFT kind of, period for those who were around during that time. So I think what's interesting is like now in 2025, it feels different. It feels very different. Obviously, the technology's progressed a lot further, but it's gotten a lot better in a lot of ways. And I think as the Senator Kehokalole said this morning, that really stuck out in my mind is that the future is now. Like we're living in the future now, right? So I'd be really curious to hear from your perspectives. How do you see, these two respective topics, and you can take your pick. How have you seen them change, or evolve since, maybe since you kind of started, or, with respect to, let's say, the early 2020s? What kind of sticks out in your mind?
I can start. I love how you're structuring this because it's such a big place to start. My introduction to crypto was in 2014. So I was actually working for Cirque du Soleil, the performance company, as a performer. I know they're opening a show here, or maybe it's already open, but I'm excited to see it. So I was performing there in 2014. Some of my coworkers, who were kind of like the rah-rah fight the government types of boys, were reading the Bitcoin white paper. And so that was my first introduction. And then I went back to school to study AI, and so I had a bit of a crossover of the early days of both. I'll just focus on the crypto side for now, but crypto has changed quite a bit. So back in those days, you're in a room with 10 super nerds talking about how blockchain is going to change the world, and bluntly, a lot of the things I had hoped to happen with the blockchain technology has not come to fruition in the larger ecosystems that I build in myself. We're seeing some great progress with regulatory changes and larger banks starting to utilize digital assets, but that doesn't necessarily mean we have freedom of finance the way I had personally hoped. But with that, the tools have gotten better, there is progress, and I think it's still like some time before a lot of these new things come, but I'm hoping that the ethos of crypto that got me so excited is still alive today.
That's great. What about you, David?
Yeah, so I started this last company about 15 years ago. And back then, there were people dabbling with some of the blockchain technologies. They were calling them different types of things. But they were also dabbling with artificial intelligence. In fact, we were fairly far along with artificial intelligence. Early on, what we started to do with that technology is try to run predictive analytics scenarios. So we were using the latest and greatest database hardware, software combinations to try to make predictions into the future. So actually, it was some really high-tech components. In SAP, it was called SAP HANA, super fast stuff. We somewhat made it work. Every year after that, as people started to advance with these algorithms and blockchain, it was like on a daily basis we could see things coming. And so it didn't, for me, really click how exciting it was going to be until probably about 5 or 6 years ago, we started to change our own organization to understand that artificial intelligence was going to come whether we wanted it to come or not. And if it was going to be here, the most important thing we needed to do was make sure that our data foundations were solid. Because it was amazing. The AI actually really worked, but it was only as good as the data we fed it. So I think from my point of view, I was a little early, like trying to make the shift. In fact, many of my clients said, well, I'd love to do artificial intelligence, but I think I better make sure my data is secure. So that's what happened first. And this will actually, I'll start to talk a little bit later about why blockchain and AI is such an important thing, and it's such an exciting thing for all of us here. If you can just start to learn a little bit each day, kind of like playing a guitar. But I'll get into that more. The change that I see now is our accessibility. Everything I got to see years ago is now in your hands. Everybody here, if you have a phone, I bet I could jump in there and show you some real magic. And everybody has access to it. So
That's a really good teaser. So stay tuned for that one. So I think, again, you touched on a couple, there's a lot of directions we can go with this. I think you both touched on a lot of interesting things. But I think the data side of it is one that's kind of immediate and actually relevant to both of your guys' kind of area of expertise. If I think of AI and blockchain, I can't help but sometimes think of it as just like two giant waves. And they're moving somewhat slowly, it seems like sometimes, but they're kind of like converging on the coast right now. And so we're just starting to see those intersections between the two. One of the areas that it's definitely going to be intersecting more so and earlier is on the data side, at least as far as I can see. And there's a couple reasons for that. I think you touched on one from the security perspective. So I think you'll both have some insights there. But also, kind of hearkening back to 2021, if we think about data from a different perspective, there's also the content side of it too, right? So, and that gets into, a lot of the panels earlier in terms of tokenization and assets and things like that. So again, even data, you can look at it from a couple of different perspectives. So yeah, I think maybe that with that as a lead-in, it'd be great to kind of hear, both of your guys' perspectives on maybe how AI and blockchain are specifically intersecting around this kind of, area of data and data integrity.
Yeah, sure. So AI has definitely given us an opportunity to help onboard more people into the blockchain space or cryptocurrency in general. One of the challenges early on, the hurdles were nobody knew what it was, right? And if you wanted to generate a blockchain or cryptocurrency project, one, you either needed to learn how to, create a crypto coin or whatever, but then you had questions like, what are the regulations? What's the data? How much data? A lot of people don't know that Bitcoin isn't actually something that you can program. It wasn't until later that we introduced a cryptocurrency that actually could be coded and you could drop programs into. It's very complicated stuff. But what's really cool and an opportunity for us now is many of those programming opportunities can be done using artificial intelligence now. And in fact, at my other company, Tanglius, we've now created an opportunity where you could just mainly speak the type of business that you're trying to do, and our application will start to generate templates based upon the asset class. Or we were talking about real world assets. So if it would understand the nuances, say, of land versus a gold mine, and then start to generate all of the workflow and business processes related to a cryptocurrency or a blockchain type scenario. Even if you're just focusing on like titles or your car certificates. There's so many nuances that build language that we as people trying to build a company need to have. But now artificial intelligence, we've fed so much of that data about what is a business, what is the business workflow, what are the components I have to have if I launch a blockchain organization or a Web3. How do I convert my Web 2, our current internet interface, to Web 3? With artificial intelligence, I only merely need to have a command of my English language to describe what I need to happen, and we now can generate templates for you to launch very quickly. So that's what we're excited about.
Super cool. How about you, Maika?
Yeah, data is at the core of everything. So this is such an exciting place to put AI and blockchain together. At Webacy, we use data all the time. It's how we do all of our predictive modeling with all of the AI. And it's all blockchain-based data. So you could see how that just naturally maps. It's a perfect problem for AI. The other side that we see a lot of AI and blockchain combined is when it comes to utilizing blockchain data to keep data separate and private, but also being able to train models with it. So let's say you have very private healthcare data. It's a great opportunity to use blockchain to be able to actually train models in a safe, secure, private way, to be able to have these new smart models to do things like research, do things like healthcare applications, do things like discoverment of new drugs or whatever you're trying to do with that. So across the board, like even from my work to all the work that we see in the space, it's just continuing to grow and so on. But there's so much we can dive into.
Yeah, I think just leading right off of that, right? So, if we think about data and we kind of try to put that in the context of almost like a technical stack, like a technology stack. So you have data, which is kind of the back end, but then you also have the front end, the user experience, right? And those tie together, obviously very closely too, but also with respect to security, right? So whether it's privacy, from my previous lives, like building trading platforms and things like that, you need to make sure who you're transacting with is who they say they are, right? From a sanctions perspective, right? This ties back into anything that we're thinking of tokenizing from a real-world asset perspective. And I know both of you guys have certainly contemplated that, definitely from an enterprise perspective, and then anything transactionally related, right? Just trying to make sure that that's safer to use, easier to use for the given user, who can be an individual or an enterprise, right? So love to hear kind of how you guys think about, again, a little bit of a segue if we're kind of moving up and down the stack, data, but now also thinking about how that impacts the user, again, with respect to privacy and security and those kind of, vectors.
This is definitely the core of my work, so I'll start here. Yeah. When it comes to the stack, we started as a user-facing company. We wanted to build tools for consumers, very selfishly myself first, to stay safer in crypto. So as you're experiencing the crypto landscape, how do I know that this token I'm trading is the real token I want to buy? Very hard to do. But with the work that we're doing and a lot of other products, this is getting easier in the UI itself to see, hey, this is flagged as a risky token while still being permissionless. So users can still make their own choice of what to buy, but maybe they have more support on the back end of seeing this is the real one that's verified. These are offshoots of the same type of token that might be trying to scam you, might not be. Deeper down the stack, let's say, for example, one of our customers, Coinbase, they have a whole risk profile of how they decide to list and delist tokens that users have access to. That whole framework needs a lot of attention and a lot of different triggers that is driven by predictive modeling. It's driven by normal heuristics for traditional risk modeling like you might see in credit card statements and fraud. And so there's a lot of overlap with TradFi and crypto as well too. So in that space, there's all the way down, you can kind of go.
Yeah, what about you, David?
Yeah, so when we've done these big enterprise rollouts, these applications, one of the things that we figured out, that user adoption and usability would make or break whether or not people would come and use the application. So it's one of the toughest things because we not only have to make it secure, and there's all these governance rules, and these are executive governance rules, like, this person works in this department, they can't get in. If you do need to get in and you're from the wrong department, you need two-factor authentication. Anyone in here deal with 2FA, right? If it doesn't work, it's like, wait, I don't have that authenticator. You give up, and you don't run the report, or you don't use it. I mean, these are all things that, being in the blockchain crypto space, we have to deal with from user perspective, because that's the first thing that will send all you guys away. Or it sent me away. I was like, I can't even log in. And I can't tell you how many stories I've heard of, hey, I've got $2 million in Bitcoin. I don't know what my passkey is. I'm like, well, I don't know how to help you there. These are real world issues, but we are trying to solve them. And this is actually where our organization has spent a lot of time using the large language models to help people through this aspect, because most of us, we speak English, and if you can speak English, you can now talk to your interfaces and get a report. Or we have to make it so simple that people will not shy away from it. Because to me, for this to make it further, it'll become an exercise of adoption, and we all have to be able to adopt it really simply. So that's an area that we're going to focus on. UI is really big. That being said, whenever you adjust for that, you run into the security issue, which is why I was so glad to meet Maika, because we probably could deal with it, but it takes a specialist, and that's very, something she's been doing, and I'm super excited that we've got to meet. So,
yeah, I can definitely relate on a lot of respects. Having just worked as a builder in the space too, I think absolutely UI, the user experience, is central to then adoption, right? And one of the things I think is a big benefit, it's relative to a couple years ago, is that thankfully I think there's been a lot of improvements in that regard. But for both of you, in terms of, again, you're looking at things from slightly different perspectives, it'd be really interesting to hear your thoughts now kind of looking forward a little bit, right? So we've all kind of experienced the ChatGPT moment, right, where it kind of went exponential. I think blockchain is maybe on the verge of that, but hasn't quite hit that point yet. I'd be curious to hear your perspectives in terms of maybe it's a little predictive, in this case, but what you think the ChatGPT moment might be for blockchain in the coming years, maybe months, who knows? And is that a UI related thing? Is that a UX related thing? What do you think of as the key levers there? Security, also they all kind of play into it, but yeah, just be curious to hear what you guys think in terms of what the main drivers of that, hopefully when that event happens, what that might be.
Tough question.
Yeah.
I think this has been really difficult, and I want to preface my opinion by saying I'm still extremely optimistic about blockchain. My career is based on blockchain, and all of my friends as well. But what I think that we've been seeing is blockchain had a boom and bust moment around 2021 timing, and where we're seeing a recovery and legitimacy growing. But now AI has overtaken it as the hype tech of the moment, and we're seeing more real-world adoption and use cases of that, maybe because of the nature of AI and ChatGPT and the things that they've managed to do. But I think crypto is lacking a major use case that will actually onboard people. Why would anyone choose to use crypto to send money somewhere instead of a bank when a bank gives them something to blame if something goes wrong, a way to claw back money if they send it to the wrong place? This is not available on crypto yet because of the way finality works on blockchain. And that's a huge trade-off that we have to consider. So on the consumer side, we're seeing now the biggest use cases in crypto consumer is gambling. It's things like Polymarket. It's things like launch pads, like Pump Fund. And these are not taken seriously by regulators. It's not taken seriously by builders. And so now the other side is stablecoins and RWAs, which I think has a lot of benefits. But I'm seeing the most exciting things happening in smaller markets that are able to integrate blockchain into the actual economic systems of the local government, of the local people. And so life-changing tech. And so that's what I'm most excited about right now. But I'm hoping the consumer use case actually comes to fruition soon.
Yeah, so I'm not worried about giving out some of these ideas. This is a great question. And you're absolutely right. What that ChatGPT moment is going to be, I'm not sure. But we think we have a couple of areas that we're working on with my team. One of them, I think, is it would impact the Hawaiian Islands or any island states right away. And that's the regenerative tourism opportunity. So where you've got the community, anyone who's visiting a beach, a coral reef, a trailhead, parking or whatever, those are all things that I think I saw somewhere in our notes that we were supposed to look at about back in, what year is it when we had the Bored Ape yachts? When did that come out?
Oh, Bored Ape Yacht Club?
So,
21.
So 21, I don't know if you're all familiar, back then there was $18,000, $100,000 images, and that was the use case. That was that time frame. That's kind of tailored off quite a bit now. But, you could argue that maybe because the gamers were in that, and there are some people who wanted to go to club scenes and hang that on their neck, and it actually was not a bad start because a lot of rules were broken, a lot of things that we realized probably shouldn't be used in real life business scenarios. But they did develop a couple things. They could secure the image, you could trade them, you could build a community around them. And so we looked at that and said, what kinds of things like that need to be secure, but immutable and absolutely transparent, right? So we can hide certain things like medical records, but these would be great for medical records. You go, this happened, I can't believe this actually happens still. You go to the doctors, and some doctor will see and they'll look at your records and say, oh, it's this person, we need to remove their left foot, and find out later on that that wasn't the guy. Those kind of mistakes can actually go away if we implement critical healthcare documentation on these types of blockchains and integrate it with artificial intelligence. This is going to be, these are just some of the ideas that we came up with. The other one I really like, and we're trying to do it, but if you guys want to join our team, Hawaii has a fantastic brand, but we don't own it because another country goes and creates some ukuleles and says made in Hawaii. But guess what? What if we created a certificate of authentication that the Hawaiian community said, if your product does not have this smart contract, it's not that. Oh, do you want to buy a knockoff? For sure. But it's not one from Hawaii. And that can be done. These are all real world opportunities I think we have. The only way we're going to get them done is to work with people as smart as Maika and some of the other people I saw come up here. These are really cool opportunities that we have that I came here hoping to meet other people. Ellen, she's brilliant. She knows a lot of brilliant people, but there's so many things that I'm very excited about because not only is the technology changed, but so has our regulations and policies. They're leaning in our favor to get these things done. Now what we need to do is continue meeting like this, continue meeting as a group of people, and start implementing just one step at a time.
That's awesome. There's so many things, I think, again, from both of you that I want to segue off of. I got to pick my spots. I definitely want to come back to community, the community aspect of it, and particularly how that relates to Hawaii. Maybe we'll kind of, leave that as kind of a closing topic. But you also touched on risks. One with respect to provenance or authorship or ownership. When we kind of kicked off the panel, we talked about data, right? So again, two sides of the same coin, right? If someone creates something like Hawaii, we create something, it could be digital, it could be physical. Now there's ways to track things physically too with tokens. I think from a broader perspective, AI and blockchain, there are risks involved. It's not, I think the vast majority of it is going to be positive. But let's take AI, for instance, little less kind of a harmful risk, but just content generation as an example. Super easy, makes content generation and therefore plagiarism basically a lot easier. So that's one kind of relatively, again, not particularly harmful risk per se, but it is a risk. So yeah, from your perspectives, what do you see kind of just playing devil's advocate a little bit maybe? What are some things that we can collectively watch out for in terms of the risks for either AI and blockchain and kind of where they go from here?
David and I were just having a really great conversation about this prior to this. I think the one use case that you brought up, which is super interesting, is the deepfake issue with AI and the opportunity for blockchain to be able to verify the validity of something. Just like if you get a fake phone call with an audio from someone you think is your family member, you need to verify them. And right now, manually, you have to maybe call them or text them from a number that you know, but there's a lot more risk that comes from that too.
Yeah, it's so true. Fortunately, I do know someone, a friend of mine, who's actually working on solving this. So deep fakes are very real. Even as good as I am as picking out fakes, I'm getting faked out. I've even had text messages from the IRS. I said, I got a call, right? This is a real serious problem, and there are companies working on it, but it's not a 100% solution because as many people that are working on solving that, there's armies creating it. So for now, we have the manual checks for sure, but I'm confident that Maika's going to come up with a solution for us. So
come on, Maika, you can do it.
She's working on it.
So I think kind of bringing that back to the community side of things. One way to protect yourselves from those types of risks is to have a stronger community and to kind of mutually kind of watch out for each other. I think as you guys touched on Hawaii as an example, but I'm sure other communities as well. It'd be really interesting to hear again how you think of these two technologies with respect to building stronger communities. As an example, I think, David, your example sticks out in my mind with the ukulele, right? Like being able to prove authorship or provenance of things that may eventually kind of be commercially sold or what have you, right? And even also the prior panel in terms of documenting or storing your philosophies and principles for your culture, on blockchain, all really kind of super compelling ideas. And I think just in terms of maybe where AI and blockchain can kind of play together in that respect, again, I think they can impact things at so many different levels. I mean, one way that they can help with communities is, for example, making it easier to kind of document some of this stuff. I mean, you mentioned generating, software through prompts right now as one example. So, yeah, I think it'd be interesting to hear from your perspectives. Could be related to Hawaii, but maybe your own respective reference point for communities. How you think about AI and blockchain potentially helping these kind of smaller networks get started first, and then potentially, hopefully spreading from there.
Yeah, so it's actually a great platform to actually help reward people to work together. I heard someone earlier talking about traceability with your food products. If we could really trace our food products there, you could incentivize people to continue to make better food products or, grow food from better ground. But you can get whole communities around that. People all of a sudden are paying attention to the products that they're using on their own yards, like one chemical versus another. But basically, incorporating the way blockchain works, you can start to create groups where you reward each other for good behavior. And that makes sense to me, and using artificial intelligence. See, before, it'd be really challenging to track everything all the time. But the honest truth is we track everything now. And if we wanted to do this correctly, we'll leverage artificial intelligence and monitor those things and reward people accordingly. So in many ways, to me, this is a really exciting opportunity to bring our communities together. And as we progress into artificial intelligence, my argument is that we need to push harder in doing the things we did as Hawaiian people or our local people, enjoying each other in person. It's going to be more important that we play music together, that we eat together, that we grow together, we raise our kids together, and we can incentivize all those things through this type of mechanism. So I'm excited about that.
That's awesome. Maika, any thoughts on that front?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I have the one beautiful thing I really liked about blockchain early on is that it gave people a platform to come together around something that they cared about. Whether or not they needed blockchain technology, it gave them a new way to govern, a new way to gather, a new way to create. And that is something really amazing. And I recently just was in Japan, so I'll share a brief example of my community. They're working with the government. There's this new wallet called Maina Wallet. Japan has this My Number system, which is kind of like a social security card there in Japan. And they're tying that to a blockchain wallet. And the issue in Japan, it's heavily regulated for crypto, so they require really strong KYC. But because they have the social security card, that's their key to the wallet. And so if they can onboard all of these citizens, now they have a network for the government to do distributions, to be able to allow these people to pay with their social security card at the grocery store, at the gas station. And it starts to create a tie that is more of an infrastructure piece for Japan, but because Japan is becoming smaller, there's so much external input coming to Japan. It's a way to solidify the local communities before a lot of that starts to change. And so it's already changing quite a bit. And so I love seeing that. And then one more thing, if you want to look up a really great use case of this working in a country, look up Estonia has done an incredible job with the blockchain system, and they're a very small country, but it's brilliant. So I check it out if you have time.
That's awesome. Super cool. I mean, one thing from my side that I was just a little curious about, just in terms of what you guys are seeing, like, I don't know, on the day-to-day. I mean, obviously both of you are running kind of client-facing businesses. And from my own experience, I think one of the most interesting things in just working as a builder is just seeing all the respective niches that people work in and how they're applying these different technologies. So, that could be, kind of individual builders versus enterprise. There's a lot of ways you can kind of segment it. So, I'd be interested to hear a little bit more, maybe for the audience too. You guys have very unique windows into both spaces in terms of how people are actually trying to deploy these like on the ground. So any interesting obviously no names if it's not public, but any interesting kind of case studies or examples that you're coming across in your different kind of customer segments?
Definitely, yeah. I think, do you want to go first? Sorry about that.
No, please.
So I think I'm definitely working on some really cool projects. One of my favorite projects is that using artificial intelligence to manage shipping and logistics. So everything from understanding the weights and the shipping lines, like your different carriers, having that all be done from an automation standpoint using AI. But then also managing all of those shipping containers and things you're moving back and forth using blockchain, so that these things they know who put it together, when it was put together, where it's going, full traceability. This helps with food, but it also helps reduce the total cost of shipping and receiving or sending stuff out. You could lower anywhere from 10 to sometimes 40% if you're more accurate. The other thing is that your inventory management, these are all things that become much more scientific when you have automation doing it. And the downside of that is they are getting closer to being able to leverage robotics and automation to do these things. Once all of these things have some type of locator on them, whether it's UPC or RFID. But yeah, that's one. And one other one I would say is this rare gold coin collection. That one's, it's the same thing, like they have huge value, but it's not often like you want to move, if you have $2 million of gold coins sitting in a bank being guarded, in Switzerland, but you want to fractionalize it because maybe you need a down payment on your house. That's an interesting use case that we're looking at right now. Again, it's going to require some serious risk compliance type things. I won't get into that my security team said, don't get into those details because there's a lot going on. AI does present some risk, but those are two really fun projects that I think are interesting to look at.
Super cool. Yeah. How about you, Maika?
Yeah, your use cases are, in my mind, a lot more interesting than ours. But we started originally with user-facing products. So these are the wallets, these are NFT platforms, these are trading bots, and now we've grown into more of an institutionally facing company. And this is just touching finance, and crypto has really turned into a new financial vessel, for better or for worse. And so things like digital asset treasuries, things like how do you actually assess the risk of someone you're lending crypto to? It becomes these much more TradFi type problems that we are working with. But we're trying to make it a little bit more fair and transparent than the FICO score that you might not know what goes into that. And if that is what controls how much your loan is on the house you're about to buy. And so I think that's where blockchain is really interesting in that space. If we move on to a blockchain financial ecosystem, it should be more transparent. We'll see what happens there.
I think that was a pretty good case study too. Yeah, super
That's
cool.
a good case.
Yeah. So we're about kind of up on time. So maybe we'll kind of close with one quick closing question. But hopefully everybody's kind of gotten some insights. I know I have. We try to kind of cover a lot of ground in 45 minutes. But thank you to Maika and David. I think just in terms of closing out, I think everybody respectively definitely has an interest in both these topics. It's going to impact their daily lives more and more going forward. So any kind of words of wisdom, parting words of wisdom for folks, whether that's something to keep an eye out for, maybe that's in terms of personal impacts, or maybe, I don't know, investment opportunities, not financial advice, but anything you can think of to kind of impart some, wisdom to the audience.
I think, the biggest thing is that, you have to be really, really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful with what you do. You have to be really careful
I think my only piece is that I was in cybersecurity prior to starting this company, and I was working with people who had been in the space for 25, 30 years, and I was newly out of college. And so crypto actually gave me the opportunity to, it was such a new industry, and it still so it is, for me to be young and still be respected and still be listened to and be able to build this company. So I think it's the opportunity, whether it's building a career or having a new ability to build something. That's what it's given me, and I think it's still very much early enough for everyone to benefit from.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say we're so early in right now that even if you learn it like 5 minutes a day, learn some aspect of crypto, blockchain, it'll help you. Within the next 6 months, you're going to be well ahead of the people who never chose to look at it. And the beauty of it is now you can actually leverage your free artificial intelligence that will literally, the senator did it great. He asked it to explain it to him at a 3rd grade level. That's about the level I learn at too. Those are perfect. You just read those and you'll start to learn. But I think it's super important because one thing I can tell for sure after doing what I've been doing is that blockchain and artificial intelligence is coming. And it's way better to have knowledge of it now, than later. I mean, you can certainly learn later, but.
So really wise words from our two panelists. Wanted to thank them, Maika and David. Thank you so much. Thanks to Ellen again. And hopefully everybody got some insight. If you have any questions on anything they talked about, please contact them afterwards. But thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Andrew.